You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. How's it going? This is in stores this week. Dan and Jay are backstage. They'll be here in a second. But we have tonight a bunch of new number ones, the end of a series, some annuals from Zenescope that'll knock your socks off, and a story from Jim Henson's Storytellers that made me feel feelings. So we'll see how that goes. This is in stores this week. What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
Yeah.
John Butler, first comment. 2009.
I don't have the ability to comment, so I couldn't jump in on that.
Aww.
So, all right. Well, welcome into In Stores this week. This is a show where we talk about books that are in stores in a month. No, I'm kidding. In stores this week. The people on that side of me are Jay and Dan. Say hi, Jay and Dan.
What's going on, folks?
Hi, Jay and Dan.
Really? Children. Well, but we've got so many books, we probably shouldn't dawdle. But it's kind of what we do is dawdle.
Yes.
So I promised, Easy Reader, are you here? Say hi in the comments when you get here, and we'll cover the book that you wanted to talk about. But in the meantime, why don't we start with, and I'm going to move myself so I cover my own face. Why don't we start here with Bell, War of the Giants #1, which is one of my favorite books this week.
By the way, the book we covered last week, the Grimm Fairy Tale, the Jack and Jill book, that's them.
Mm-hmm.
That's so yeah. The Iron Fist looking guy with the sword and the girl with the axe. That's Jack and Jill, who aren't fetching any water. There's no hills. They're all in limbo. Basically, Belle thinks she's heading to Tartarus to save her mom, and ends up in the wrong place because Google Maps. I don't know.
Also, there were hills. At one point, they literally roll a wagon down a hill.
They do. They absolutely do. Yeah, I couldn't believe that was actually the plan.
Yeah, it felt a little ill planned there.
Yeah.
But it winds up working out because it always does in these books, right? It's Belle winds up being her usual kind of badass self, and we have Jill, who does that story. I found very compelling. The Jack and Jill story.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure of the third lady who we're supposed to care about between the person who had taken the throne and the one who was taking it back, and what happened to the other one. But
yeah, it felt like at the end, and we'll kind of dig a little deeper, but it felt like in the end that it was Belle has set herself up with a very powerful enemy that will certainly cause her trouble going forward. You
pointed something out about Zenescope about a week or two back, where you said that, they do these characters and then, they do these one shots and you really don't get the continuity. They're doing continuity.
Yeah.
But if you walk in and grab this book for the first time, you don't have that back continuity, and they really don't spend any time, for the fact it's one shot, really setting up that continuity.
Right. I don't know why this book wasn't Jack and Jill #2 with a cameo from Belle.
Yeah.
Or why this wasn't a Belle #30 with a cameo from Jack and Jill.
Yeah, or Jack and Jill was War of the Giants Part 1, and this was War of the Giants Part 2.
Yes. This is, Belle, Monster Hunter, War of the Giants Part 2. Right. Like, I get why they're doing it, and to hear Pat Shan talk about it yesterday on Jen's show, I understand the logic that Zenescope is using. it's not something that traditional readers are going to be able to grasp a hold of, I don't think. So, Jay, what did you think of this one, man?
I liked it. Like, as always, Zenescope, their art is just phenomenal, like every time. Now, if you wouldn't have shown this cover, I was going to talk about how, there was a little twist that Jack and Jill are in this one, but cover kind of gives that away. There was something about the dialogue at the beginning that kind of got me, because it's super poetic for a minute, and then it turns into, like, I don't want to lose, like, all my fingers or toes. Like, it was a little bit jarring from going to the first, couple of panels, reading this poetic, very nice dialogue, to Valley Girl kind of in like a second. But, there was also some of the panels had a ton of dialogue in them. Yeah. Like, almost so much to where it took over the art. And then other panels had like 2 words. But, I mean, overall, it's a pretty good story. But I agree that this probably should have been a Jack and Jill Part 2 featuring Belle.
I also noticed something else. I think it may have been reading this along with the other 2 books we're dealing with this week. Well, actually, one of the other 2 books. Zenescope has kind of, and don't get me wrong, I love the guys over there. I've worked with them for a long time. They've become a little one note in that all of their characters are these female leads who have had a parent killed that they're trying to get revenge for, and they're all smartasses. They all have the quippy one-liners, and there's not a lot of differentiation between Belle and, I mean, okay, Van Helsing has the dialogue difference, but Belle and Gretel and Robin and Jill and all of these characters, personality-wise and history-wise, they're becoming a little interchangeable. There really isn't that different type of character.
And see, I think that's part of why I long for the traditional continuity.
Yeah, it does feel like maybe the writers are all kind of living on their own and not really reading each other's books, maybe.
Or they're reading each other's books too much, right? Like, it's, oh, okay, that's working for him. I'm going to take that. I made a joke to that's not what I want to do. I made a joke to Pat on the air yesterday that he and Raven should write a play about giants. And that it should star you, Dan and I. Right? Like, that's, just because the sense of humor that everybody there displays is so similar and so great.
Yeah.
So there's something to that, but I think maybe it's working a little too well.
Yeah, and it's very different than when Zenescope started, because Zenescope started, there was basically 3 books. There was Sinbad, and Sinbad had that kind of sense of humor. Then there was the Wonderland books, and that was much more dark and psychological, and that there wasn't that humor to it. It was much more mind screwy. And then there was the Grimm Fairy Tales books, which were, even though they had a narrator, overall they were all self-contained little horror stories. So they were three very separate books. And now it just seems like a lot of the characters have kind of become the same character. They've all borrowed Sinbad's sense of humor. And I feel bad about that because I'm the one that gave Sinbad his sense of humor. But, I would like to see them shake it up a bit. I mean, you look at you take characters like, you have Spider-Man and Moon Knight, very different characters. You don't have that in the Zenescope universe. They're all kind of the same, other than one has an accent.
All right, let's cover this. This is Project Superpowers Fractured States #1. So I'm going to start on this one. This is a book, and I said this to Dan, and I said it on Jen's show just a minute ago. This is one of those books that's not for me, but it's very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
It was enjoyable in the sense, like, as a comic book to read, it was very enjoyable. But, you know, my fondness for Project Superpowers is such that I don't really have one. No, I'm kidding. It's one of those things that it's not a book that I generally enjoy. I liked the storytelling. I thought Ron Mars and Andy Lanning did a great job. I think that they're setting up a great story that if we continue to read it for this show, I'm in. But like, it just isn't something that I would pick up for me.
Okay. This is where I kind of take the ball. Project Superpowers is basically public domain superheroes. These are characters that have been around a long time. You can go back, and these guys came out, you know, back when we had the early Supermans and Batmans and stuff like that. Black Terror, the Flag. These are characters that have been around for years and have drifted into the public domain. Well, Dynamite basically made a group of heroes out of it. Different people have taken a run of it. I think Alex Ross and Jim Krueger were kind of the first ones to do it, and it's been building from that. This kind of takes that and turns it on its ear, because they're taking the character of the Black Terror and they're making it more of a symbolism for the resistance, you know, of the basically all the crap that's happening in the world today just gets out of hand. The climate problems, the social economic problems, the class systems, everything goes apart. All the rich people go up into these floating cities, and those that are left on Earth that have survived have basically turned into this like rebel force, you know, are either, you know, stuck in this wasteland or are the people trying to help. And they've taken on the Black Terror as kind of their symbol. The guy that we're following, we get the opening scene where the flag is being killed by somebody, but we really don't get much more to that. So it's more of a mood setup. And then we jump ahead to this guy who wakes up in what is equivalent of a bomb shelter, comes out and finds the world 30 years ahead, something like that. And it's in post-apocalypse, except the apocalypse is us. You know, there's no single event that does it. It's just we've destroyed the world. He doesn't remember who he is, and we don't know who he is. So we could look back through the Project Superpower books and try to figure out who this guy is. He could be Black Terror. He could be some of the other different heroes. Silver Streak, I think, is one of them. There's a few different ones it could be. It could be the Flag. And we see that he's got some levels of power. It would make sense that he's Black Terror. But so we're really just doing a lot of setup here. But that's what it is that we basically jump ahead 20, 30 years. We see where the world is now, where we don't turn it around. We don't start making changes to make the world better. And you end up with this world and these characters.
I had one major issue with this book. So he doesn't remember who he is, where he came from, but he remembers Bob and Black Terror.
Bob is the Black Terror.
Okay.
So I forgot about that. So yeah, we're pretty much assured that he's not the Black Terror.
Okay. So does he just have selective amnesia? What was going on with that?
Well, it could be that whatever sleep that he was in has rattled his brain, so he remembers certain things.
Okay.
And it's just still piecing together that we'll get it over time, which is what I think it probably is. It's it's that fractured memory. It's called fractured states. So it's probably his memory is fractured.
That makes sense. And this was a full issue, right?
Yeah.
Full issue. this thing read so fast, I thought I was reading an ash can. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. And then it was, before I knew it, it was over. I guess it was a really good story. I've actually never heard of this before. It was a really good story, but it's also one of those ones that I definitely have to read, the number 2, the number 3 to see if I'm really into it. But it's a very quick moving story. Like I said, the only thing that really got me was the remembering Bob, but he couldn't even remember who he was.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're in Florida for this apocalypse, and you got
that's the only part of that seems real.
Yeah, the mecha crocodile, mecha gator, whatever that was.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I could definitely see myself getting into it. Like I said, it was just such a quick read. One of the fastest reads we have on this list of stuff we got.
Yeah. Well, we get so much decompressed superhero stories now that is kind of fun for just to jump in and go, all right, here's the setup. Come back next week or next month.
Right. And I will say this, on the scale of Dynamite, like their top tier characters are Vampirella, Red Sonja, the kind of the lady powers. Mm-hmm. And then you have this kind of second, they're not second tier characters, but they're kind of the next rung on the ladder that are Project Superpowers and Sacred Six and these more traditional stories, Green Hornet, that are more traditional superhero-y stories, but that harken back to the golden age of comics. And so sometimes and the public domain characters. So sometimes those characters hit funny to a reader because they don't have the kind of background or trajectory when they're approaching the character that they should.
Yeah, and the Project Superpowers tend to kind of have amnesia themselves. So you've got this, and they go, well, we all know Black Terror was Bob, but they don't necessarily acknowledge any of the previous series. They tend to be kind of standalone takes on it. So to read this, you don't necessarily need to go back and read Warren Ellis's run on Project Superheroes or Jim Kruger's run or some of the other people who have tackled the book, because they all tend to be kind of standalone.
Right. And that in and of itself, I think, is a little bit of a problem. Just because, okay, Black Terror is Bob. Well, why do you know that? How do you know that? Have you met him before? I don't fully understand what's happening right now. Like, they either need to do more previously on Project Superpowers, or they, the person jumping in to read it needs more introductory knowledge than people necessarily have. So, all right. We need to take a break here in just a second. But before we do, I want to tease the next 3 books, which are A Grim Fairy Tale Story, Star Trek, and Jim Henson Storytellers. So we'll be back in like a minute max here on The Experience, if I can click the right stuff.
You can do it. You can do it.
All right, we'll be right back. Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code. Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere The Experience is all the time. Thanks for tuning into The Experience. Help us out and hit subscribe over on YouTube, and make sure you click the bell when you do. Need some help? Scan the QR code in the bottom corner. And we're back.
Yep.
I don't like it when I have to do voiceover for commercials.
Those were great.
It makes me frustrated.
thought JD did most of the voiceovers.
We have had to divide and conquer certain job responsibilities. He will be doing the voiceovers for people who are paying for voiceovers. I will be doing voiceovers for people who don't. And you get what you pay for.
Well, if you ever need help, let me know.
Yeah.
I can do my voiceover voice.
All right. So we'll come to this one next. Like I said before the break, we have this is Grim Spotlight number 5.
This was the one character that I read this week from Cinescope that wasn't really in that mode. She was a little different. She wasn't quite as quippy, but she does seem to still have the angsty parental setup, as does our new villain Divinity, who doesn't last very long as a villain. But spoiler. So, but basically, you have a necromancer versus a paladin for your D&D people. That's what I got.
Yeah, I think you said it all.
I've never read this character. Is it Mystere or is it actually Mystery?
I have no idea.
Yes.
Yes, either or. But after reading this, I know Jenna probably has issues. I'd actually like to read more. The character was very interesting to me. I will say that it was a good story, but it was a bit predictable, especially the little reveal at the end with the priest.
Mm-hmm.
But there's honestly not too many Zenescope books that I dislike, and I don't know. I generally tend to like them, and I like this one. I actually like this one a little bit more than the what was it, the Bell one that we read? I like this one a little bit more than that, and another one that's on the list. So it's a good story. I liked it.
It's also short. It was like a standard sized comic where everything else seems to be much bigger.
Well, and that's the thing, right? This is number 5. You don't often see a number 5 from Zenescope anymore.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, right? I don't remember us reading number 4.
No.
I don't think I did. And so you're jumping in the middle of a thing. It is the one Zenescope book that doesn't feel like a Zenescope book necessarily in terms of the way it's written. And it just, again, it's set funny to me. But in terms of, it was a quick read. It was the shortest of the Zenescope books. So getting through it and leaving it where it gets left at the end, number 6 would be something that I would pick up based on number 5.
Yeah. Yep. It was interesting.
All right. So I told Dan there were a couple of books I walked away from.
Okay.
One of them was Project Superpowers, even though I did go back and read it. This was the one I didn't go back and read. Star Trek Discovery number 2, Adventures in the 32nd Century.
I know nothing about Star Trek Discovery. I haven't watched the series. So for me, my experience with the series has been this and the first issue we did a couple weeks ago, which I really liked, the first issue. This, to me, being an old Trekker, having read or having watched like DS9, where the Trill and the symbiotic creatures and stuff all came into play, like Jadzia Dax and stuff like that, it's fascinated me because they're an alien race that I'm familiar with, and to see this setup where the symbiote kind of passes on. And so from that point of view, I thought it was interesting. Also, getting some of the backstory about having to leave Earth, what happened to Earth. I'm getting more and more into this to the point where I may end up having to get damn Paramount Plus because I'm enjoying the setups we're getting from this.
I'll loan you my login. Just don't lose my place in NCIS.
Wherever you are, Gibbs is telling people don't apologize.
No, I'm watching NCIS New Orleans. So it's Scott Bakula is telling people, be cool, man. By the way, if you watch NCIS New Orleans and you think about it just as one really long episode of Quantum Leap, it takes on a whole new life.
I think of everything that Scott Bakula does, including Star Trek Enterprise, as just a really long episode of Quantum Leap.
He was in a show with Andre Braugher and Ray Romano called Men of a Certain Age.
Mhm.
Yep.
That certainly felt like a really long episode of Quantum Leap. All right, Jay, what did you think about that one?
Very first thing, I don't believe I personally have ever seen art like this in a book. The art was very interesting to me. So instead of Star Trek Discovery, this should have just been Star Trek Love Story. And, I'm all for love stories if that's what I'm intending to read. I don't go out and pick up The Boys if I want to read a love story.
Ooh, that'd be a twisted one.
Yeah, sure would be. But, as this is the first ever Star Trek comic I've ever read, I probably shouldn't have started with this one. And
Episode 1 was all told from the point of view of a cat, just so you know.
maybe I should have read that one. But, like I said, don't get me wrong. It's not like I have anything against love stories, but, when I picked up, when this was shown to me and I was like, I'm going to read it, I was expecting more of a Star Trek story. Nothing against it, but I probably wouldn't pick this up.
Well, and Dan, you'll remember I wasn't big on the cat issue.
Which was awesome. I don't know what your problem is.
See, that sounds cool.
This is I didn't say this on Jen's show because I feel like on this show I can be a little more brutal than I want to be on her show because that show has a very different tone.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're trying stuff, right? They're trying different storytelling tropes, storytelling styles, feelings, emotion, like all this kind of stuff. They're feeling their way through this, it feels like. And while that's good, and I'm glad they can do it, and the cat issue was interesting, I just didn't like it. This issue being a more traditional love story just turned me off out of the gate. Issue number 3, I'm back. Like, let's see what they try in issue number 3. Right? Like, I like that they're trying stuff out, but I just wish that this was more traditional Star Trek feeling.
Well, if you look at what Sean says, the series is not a traditional Star Trek series either.
Right.
So
and I recognize that. And like I said, I've watched the show, and what I was hoping that this would turn into is like the Firefly series we read, or the Buffy series we read, where it's telling an expanded universe story. I feel like this is maybe more of an anthology style series, telling stories inside the universe, not necessarily expanding upon it.
Well, I think, and again, this is how I'm seeing it. They're giving us more in-depth stories about individual characters on the show. I think this character is a member of the crew of the Discovery, and we're getting a little more of her history.
Right, but nowhere anywhere does it say it's an anthology series. Nowhere anywhere does it kind of explain that that's what they're doing. And if I come at it from that direction, I get it.
It does say adventures in the 32nd century, not singular.
Right, but there's only one deep space. Somehow they managed to find 9. Yeah, I know.
All right, Alf. Cat hater.
I should, if I'd have known you were gonna make that. I just bought an Alf puppet for Miss Jen. I have it at home.
Wow.
Anyhow, but no, like I said, I wish I'd have known going in that it was an anthology series, and not like, again, I was expecting the Buffy style or the Firefly style, where it's here's another story that expands upon the universe. So, all right, Jim Henson's Storytellers Shapeshifters number 2. I didn't mean to do that to you, Jay.
Why they gotta make me cry?
Right, why they gotta make me feel my feelings, man?
What? Jim Henson, he's supposed to be Well, Jim Henson stuff is supposed to be light and family, and I'm going, man,
Right.
why do you do this to me?
This book was emotional. Like, it was a great book.
Yeah.
I do want to say that I want to, and I don't know that this is true. Nowhere does it reference it. Nowhere does it say anything. This is just me headcanoning that this is the old man from Fraggle Rock and the dog is Sprocket from Fraggle Rock. They don't say that. It's not, anywhere that it would prove that that's a thing, but it's how I feel. So, that
cover is gorgeous.
This cover really is gorgeous. There's another cover that normally the B covers on these are the things that really get me. And the B cover feels a little Bill Sienkiewicz-y, even though it's not by Bill Sienkiewicz for this story. So I went with the more traditional cover. This is by, Darcy Little Badger, who wrote A Snake Falls to Earth and Marvel Voices Indigenous Voices. This is a indigenous myth that's being told in this story, and it's the old man telling it to his dog. But the story doesn't feel like a story you're being told by someone. It feels like a story that you can totally relate to. And yeah, it will mess you up.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And if you have either lost a parent or have an elderly parent, just go ahead and grab a box of tissues.
Yeah.
I will also say that not having had that experience, if you ever have felt connected to a place, like a real strong place connection.
Yeah.
I have that with several places in my life, not necessarily people. And it hits you there too. So,
or if you really like to dance.
Really, Michael Flatley?
Well, I don't have too much to say on this one.
Hang on.
that y'all haven't already said, but I watched this series as a kid, The Storyteller. I think I was 5 when it came out.
I don't remember that series.
Me neither.
Yep. Jim Henson's The Storyteller. Yes, sir.
I'm the old man here.
I watched. I was about 5 years old. I think I was 8 when Jim Henson passed. He died in 1990, I believe. This was a well-written, just bittersweet, beautiful story. And I could have seen this as an episode of Jim Henson Storytellers.
Am I doing this show with millennials?
I identify as Gen X.
I will be 40 this year.
What year were you born?
I was born in 82.
I'm technically a millennial, but I identify as Gen X.
Damn you, Nick Barrucci, for getting me onto this show.
How do I put? I wasn't born until 1988. However, you can pick up Jim Henson's The Storyteller on Amazon Prime.
Just remember to lift from the knees.
It's included with Prime.
Still holds up.
I'm gonna watch it tonight, and I'll let you know.
No, you're gonna watch Moon Knight.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna watch it until the second episode comes out.
That's tonight.
That's
not where I live.
Yeah, that's smart though. That's smart though. Waiting to that second episode because I've been.
This first episode ended in a perfect spot.
Oh,
that was such a great place to cut.
Oh,
come on.
Not wrong, Jeff. You're not wrong. And my skeleton too, by the way. If you saw how much metal plating I have, you'd believe it.
His beard belonged to Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yeah, I just traded. Yeah. All right. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books left. So I don't want us to go faster, but I couldn't pick between the rest of these books a top 5. So we'll start here. We'll start with Nottingham number 6.
Yes.
I am a fan of Robin Hood and that whole story, and I have a hard time getting into this.
Oh,
And I love the concept. I have a hard time getting into this series, and partly it might partly be because I don't know the
We're
art.
jumping into the second story arc too. That might hurt you.
Yeah, but I have a hard time with the art. It's not very clear to me. You know, for me, it's hard to follow the story. So I'm out on this one, guys. I love the
Well, then I'm
concept.
gonna do this.
Okay.
oh.
No, I'm kidding. I keep covering my own face. No. So, this is the start of either the 100 Years' War or the War of the Roses in terms of historical time, right? And you have the French and the English at odds with each other despite their long and intertwined history, and you have Robin Hood, who would be considered a terrorist.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you have the Sheriff of Nottingham, who is essentially Batman, coming into this story. And the premise is that there's a letter that's to be delivered, and Robin Hood and his merry men intercept it. But the sheriff gets there before they can read it. He goes back to the king, and it all kind of kicks off from there. So
there's a point where they're in the throne room and they start talking to somebody named Gisborne, but I don't see Nottingham. I don't see the sheriff there. And for the best of my knowledge, Guy of Gisborne is the sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah, same guy. In the story, in the traditional story, not in this book.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Guy of Gisborne is not the sheriff?
I thought he was the prince, not the.
He's
the prince.
He has a different job in this book.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of the things that threw me off.
He's like, how would I put this? If the sheriff of Nottingham is the sheriff of Nottingham, Guy of Gisborne is the head of the NSA. Like, he is the head security crime officer to the prince. Like, he's gotten a promotion from sheriff.
Then who the hell is this guy?
Black. What is his last name?
Yeah,
Favorite
I don't
series,
remember.
I can't remember. I can't remember.
I don't remember from series 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I was so confused and stuff, because Guy of Gisborne should be the sheriff.
Not wrong, but
Multiverse.
yeah,
Multiverse.
Right.
Here's what I got to say about it. I am completely biased.
Not easy.
Because I love this series. I love it. I've picked up the first 4. I've read them multiple times. I love the art. I love the characters. I love the super twisted tale of Robin Hood that's not Zenoscope. I love just the sadisticness of these people that we've been told forever are the heroes. There's still something, maybe conspiracy brain, where it feels like this is still the sheriff telling his side of the story. But as far as the book goes, without spoiling anything, my favorite part was near the end when both of the unholy alliances happen. Yeah. I love this book. I'm so stoked to read the rest of it. I can't wait. This is my favorite thing that I've read this week.
See, I got to tell you, I'm now disappointed because I love the concept as you explained it to me. Kyle's been talking about this book forever, and I love the concept. But if he's not Guy of Gisborne, then you're not really telling the story from the sheriff's point of view. You're telling it from a completely new character's point of view.
Well, yeah.
Easy Rider, thanks for being here. Maybe if you have some time tomorrow, tune back in, catch the second half. There's a ton of just monster books coming in the rest of the show.
All right.
Dan, I'm gonna send you a link for a thing. I'll send you volume 1.
You sent me a link for volume 1.
All right, you maybe read it.
We did. 12 books today. I didn't have time to read a graphic novel.
No, I didn't. That wasn't the link I sent you. I sent you Bountiful Garden Volume 1 today.
Oh.
That was a different one that the trade had just come out. And my whole thing was, hey, let's just scan this real fast. But I agree with you. I didn't get to it. Jay, did you get to it?
I scanned it.
All right, Jay can go over what happened at Bountiful Garden. But we're going to head over to Apache Delivery Service number 4, which is the end of the Apache Delivery Service story.
I can do Jay's part right now because there's no way Jay knows what the hell's going on in this book. Because
I have a real quick thing that I'll say about it, and then this was so weird, and I would still read it just because Matt Kent is the writer, and I love Matt Kent's work. It feels like it's a cautionary tale. If you find gold with a maniac, leave it alone. That's what I got from this book.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. This was exactly the ending you thought we were going to get.
Yep.
And so it's a tad predictable, but it's still a fun read, or it's a good read. And this, if you haven't been picking it up, when the trade comes out, it's going to be a good sit down and read the whole thing in one sitting.
Right. I feel like you could read this whole series in about 45 minutes.
Yeah. It's a great concept of an he's not even Apache. I think he was a Navajo tracker who is get pulled into looking for hidden gold in the middle of Vietnam, and with the guy who turns out to have a really twisted past. It's a great book.
Yeah.
It's a little predictable, but it's it's exactly what you want it to be from Matt Kent. Tyler Jenkins and Hillary Jenkins do a great job on the art. It's a good book. When the trade comes out, grab it. But this is not the book to jump in on. This is not the issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This feels like the spiritual successor to Matt Kent's book Black Badge. In terms of it has a similar vibe to it in terms of it's a war story, but it's not told in a traditional war story way. And there's other layers to the story. It kind of reminds me, if we were going to talk about a movie, sort of like Good Morning Vietnam, in that that's a war movie, but it has nothing to do with war.
It's done by Quentin Tarantino.
Right, but so it's a war movie, but it has nothing to do with war. It has everything to do with everything else. Right? So this one is, we frame it up really nicely in this Vietnam War story, and then just turn, into this, here's a serial killer, and here are these weird witch-type women that live in the wilderness, and what is happening here, and why is this? And then at the end, it kind of all ties up in a nice little bow, like you would expect it to. And so he doesn't need to tell any more of this story. The story can just be over.
Yes. It's a nice one and done. Sit on the shelf, graphic novel. Enjoy our trade. Enjoy it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
All right. So next, we have, let's do this. Let's take our second break. And we'll be back. And I'll preview the next couple of books before we go to break here. We have our final entrant from Zenoscope, from our friend Pat Shand, a character from the Golden Age.
Yay!
And a book that is absolutely banana pants.
Did you just say the Golden Age for the Rocketeer?
The Rocketeer, is a Golden Age character.
No, he's not.
When did he start? When did they start telling Rocketeer stories?
The 80s?
No.
Yes.
All right.
You go to break. I'll get to the actual date.
All right. Let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll see that Dan is only partially correct.
This is The Experience.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey there, hi there, ho there. You're as welcome as can be.
Hi, I'm Nancy McCann. Welcome to Friday Night Live on The Experience.
Welcome everybody, Fat Jack's Comic Crypt. Brendan, Al, Jason, hanging out.
There I am. Welcome back to Kicking It with Henry, folks. I'm your host, Henry Kumpel. It's great to be here with you guys.
So we are going to talk about books that are in stores this week.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mishmash.
Hello, and welcome to the Black Comics Universe, presented by Peep Game Comics.
And you gotta love it that the first people in the minute to skim it are creators.
Up, everybody! Welcome to another Wednesday Warriors. My name is Joey Galvez, and this is my pal Ambrosia.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to Space Cadet.
Hey!
What's up?
Welcome, everyone, for another episode of I Must Ask You a Question.
Hi, everybody, welcome to Nerd News Now.
Hey, this is Rex. Welcome to Comic Collectibles.
Hey, hello, all you happy people. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the crazy show that we do on Thursdays called What's in the Box?
What's in the box?
Comic culture and sales.
All right. So I did my research.
1982, Pacific Comics, Star Slayer. It was the backup story for Mike Grell's book, Dave Stevens. And unless you're saying it's because it's an homage to the characters of the past,
Nope.
like Sky King. But
I'm conflating it with a different character.
So you're wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. No, I'm mistaking the Rocketeer for another Rocket style character.
Rocket Man?
Yeah. Which is actually, I was still wrong. It's Nuclear Age. So it's from the strips. So
Did you just try to go comic history against me? Really?
eh,
Know me for more than a year now? You've been producing my show?
yeah, but I don't listen that often.
Even Sean got it in the comments right away.
Yeah, because Sean's really quick on the Google.
That's true.
I spent most of that break trying to figure out what was I remembering. And I'm remembering strip comics from the late 1930s.
Okay.
All right. So since we're talking about it, let's start with it.
I'm jumping in on this one. This was my book of the week. I love everything about this book except for one thing, and I'll get that in a second. This is the most on-the-nose homage to what Dave Stevens did. The dialogue, the writing, the characters. This is as good of a pickup from what Dave Stevens had created as anybody who's tried. And a lot of different people have tried to pick up and to carry the ball forward. Jonathan Ross, Kurt Busiek, Mark Waid, and this to me is the best. And the one knock I have against it is that his girlfriend's character is Betty, based on Betty Page. That's who Dave Stevens created the character off of. Dave Stevens and Betty Page became really good friends before both of them passed. But whoever the artist is trying too hard to draw Betty Page, is probably using photo reference and is spending too much time trying to get the likeness so it seems detached from the other characters.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is written by Stephen Mooney, who just did a run on Betty Page at Dynamite.
Yes.
And you probably will know the answer to this, Mr. Smarty Pants. I had texted Nick earlier. Am I misremembering a Rocketeer story where he was actually married to the real Betty Page?
No, she's based off of the look of Betty Page, but she's not supposed to be the real Betty Page. She's referred to as Betty, but I think even the difference in spelling, Betty Page spells her name Ttie,
Right.
and the one in the book is Tty.
Right. I mean, it's a Mandela effect thing then for sure, because I would have sworn that there was one where like she was actually Betty Page.
Everything about her is Betty Page,
right.
But it's not officially Betty Page. I don't think they even get to say her. They never say her last name in the book.
Sure. No, like I said, it's one of those Mandela effect things, right? Like I would have bet all the money in my pocket that it was a thing. But, you know, Nick had been like, "No, we've never done anything." So I thought, you know, maybe Dan will remember it was something from, you know, the 80s or whatever from before.
Yeah.
But
a Betty Page story where she accidentally finds a jetpack like that.
Well, I want that story now, because especially with the way Dynamite has been treating Betty Page, like as this kind of Mata Hari super spy, with the Rocketeer, could be an absolutely badass romp. So,
yeah, but Betty Page is a super spy stealing a rocket pack.
I'm good with both stories, man.
Wear it. That would be awesome.
So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I like anything that harkens back to this age.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about, well, maybe the Rocketeer should move forward in time and stop fighting Nazis. No. Stop. This was perfect.
Yes.
In that regard. And this is what Mooney does really, really well. He did it really well with Betty Page. He did it really well in Half Past Danger. This is an era that he writes better than anybody, in my opinion. And the pulpiness just comes through in every panel.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So I'm double checking the artist. If they would just
Len O'Grady.
Yeah, if they just back off a little bit on trying to make her look so much like Betty Page, make it an homage to Betty Page and not just Betty Page, then I think it would be perfect.
Nick, if you're still here, I mean, I think there's enough call now. Make a phone call.
No, Steve Mooney does the art on it.
He did some of the art. Len did some of the others. I don't know what.
I'm looking at the credits. As story and art, Steve Mooney, colors Len O'Grady.
Okay, I think Len might be doing some inking too.
Okay,
because I know Len O'Grady as an inker. So he did some books for my friend Dirk real early on. All right, so yeah, Jay.
Okay, so the first thing that I notice about this is this reads like it was made in 1938.
Yeah, the dialogue.
The dialogue is, the Krauts are training in the hills. We got to go get them. Huzzah. And, those kids are talking soap. I don't know what that means, but that's the voice I heard in my head.
They're blowing bubbles, man. They're telling lies.
Bubbles. But, I loved the Rocketeer movie as a kid. This was good. I don't know why, but it felt long. It wasn't boring, but it just felt like a long read for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's because I read 10 other books before it, but
yeah, I'd say this one the last.
There is one thing though that kind of was weird to me, and it was a transition between when he's getting blown out of the sky. I wanted to see him fall. Like, I wanted to see, how did he survive that? But instead he falls into a bed, and it goes on with the second part of the story. That was the only thing that really threw me off about it.
But now your imagination can fill that in.
Stupid.
I read comic books so they can tell me what to see in my imagination. That's what I read them for.
Okay, you need to read Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, the term blood in the gutters. He specifically talks about how we don't see everything. It's left in the panel in between the panels. They just left a lot in between the panels.
All right. We could probably talk about the Rocketeer all night, but I'm going to try and keep us on time here. So let's head over to, this is Zenoscope. This is Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, Hour of the Witch, #1, by Pat Chand and just a lot of people.
Yeah. I thought it was fine. I thought her running into Gretel was a nice touch.
Yeah, I didn't know much about Gretel, so it was kind of cool to.
Yeah, I don't think Pat necessarily treaded any new ground. But I don't think I think it was a fun read, which is why it was so high on my list. For me, it read, for being as long as it read incredibly quickly because it was so much fun.
Though they do talk about vampire witches, which is something I don't think it's actually popped up before that much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're going to be two things, it's better than being vampire Frankensteins.
Or peanut butter and chocolate, vampire witches.
Yeah, and as much as I enjoyed it, because I did enjoy this one too, it did really feel like you could have taken the first book, like Dan was talking about, and taken those characters and just switched them with this one and told it almost the exact same story.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But I also felt like it could be split in half and made into 2 books.
Yeah.
Or we could have cut some of the middle out and sped it up a little bit. It did seem long.
Yeah. But still an incredibly fun read and a great book.
Yeah.
All right. So the next 3 books are definitely my top 3. I struggle with the top 5, but the next 3 are definitely my top 3. So I'm going to start with Guilt, which is the Guild of Independent Lady Temporalists. There are rules with time travel, and they have their own set. So the pitch I gave to this book earlier is that it's like, have you guys ever seen the musical Mame? It was a role that was originated by, and I'm gonna forget her name, B. Arthur. And it was set kind of in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a female empowerment musical about a single woman living in New York adopting her nephew. Right, and it's this whole thing about how, she wears pants when she's supposed to wear dresses. And, that kind of time. And that was when the show debuted, by the way. So it feels like you have an early feminist adopter, right? In Hildy, and this girl who comes to her house to be her home health helper.
Yeah.
And help clean her house, are very much cut from the same cloth. You see flashback to them going to buy Fluvog shoes, which is a very kind of eccentric thing.
Oh, I got a friend of mine who loves Fluvogs. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, they're very eccentric things. And by the way, in this book, this is a minor spoiler, she buys the Fluvogs with legally not Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Today is the anniversary of the death of Kurt Cobain. It's just a fun, sad little coincidence, maybe. But no, it's these 2 women who are very eccentric in their own right and very much their own person come together, and it's the beginning of what feels like a wild time travel romp to me. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, if you could only interact with your past selves.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was a time travel. I mean, I got hints that it was a time travel story, but you really don't get what it is until the end of the book. You're basically just getting these 2 eccentric women, and I don't even want to say eccentric, very woman powering. I mean, Hildy wrote for Cosmopolitan and Miss Magazine, and the other one's a journalist as well. And we find out some neat twists going on. It is an interesting book.
Right. I got
no idea, but it's an interesting book.
I got that it was time traveling really quickly when they kept bouncing through time. Like, we're in the 70s, now we're in modern day, now we're in the 90s, now we're back to modern day, then we're talking about the 70s, now we're back to the modern day. Like, I'm like, oh, this is clearly, all of these jumps are going to mean something.
Just think if you were your own personal TARDIS.
Would I be bigger on the inside?
We're still a family-friendly network.
Yeah.
I know. I almost went with, would it be smaller on the outside because it'd be easier to buy clothes. But
okay, so that's Guilt number 1 from Ahoy Comic.
Right. Jay, what did you have anything?
Only that, I was expecting like a goofy, absurd story, seeing that the last 2 things I've read from Ahoy had been that way. And while there's funny parts in this kind of doesn't feel like those other books at all.
Yeah.
Like I could buy this more than I could the other books. The other books were just goofy.
Yeah, like the only one I've really read from it is a parody book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where this is more of a straightforward story, and I'm really kind of curious where they're going.
Yep.
And the prose stories in the back of this book, did you guys read any of those?
Not enough time.
Were really good. They're worth taking a stopover on. So,
words, just pictures. Let's go.
Well, there are little illustrations to go with them. Okay, so we have 2 books left.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a preference on which one we do first, Jay? We have a Victorian book and a Western.
Let's do West of Sundown. Yeah.
So this book is set, and I couldn't remember Anson Mount. Thank you for reminding me last show. Kind of in the period when Hell on Wheels, the AMC show, takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Post-Civil War, but kind of before the Intercontinental Railroad leads to the kind of the industrialization of the West. So it gives a very specific time frame, right? Like the late 1860s, early 1870s. And you could kind of see it on the cover in the O in Sundown. It's a vampire story.
Yeah,
but
it's a great cover. Sean.
Yeah. No, all the covers for this book are just fire.
Yeah.
I think that setting and the kind of Americanization of a vampire story is a very interesting and unique take. And it really made this one of my favorite books this week. I also think that it's an interesting introduction to sort of the Universal Monsters style characters that I think we're going to see based off of what we find out in this book.
I had a slightly different reaction to it. I liked everything up to that point. It had a very Bram Stoker's meets not Wild Wild West, but your classic Western tale, that feel to it, but like an Americanized version of the Jack the Ripper era, even though it's a few decades earlier. But when we get the other monsters at the end, that to me was actually a turn off. I liked where they were going. I really want to spend more time with this vampire and the guy that's working for her and his emotional and religious angst that he's going through because of the things he's helping her do. I'm all for that. It suddenly became a little schlocky when the other creatures showed up at the end. And it lost me a little bit.
This is kind of I don't know that they are what we think they are.
But we do think what that, and they do look that way.
Right. But what I think, because I'll be honest, I didn't think that our main character was a vampire for the first kind of little introduction of what we had, right? Like, I'm like, oh, this is a different kind of creature feature. And then it turns out, okay, she's a vampire. Okay, got it. And then it's a twist on that typical trope. So I wonder if it's not going to be a twist on the tropes of the other kind of characters.
Well, I mean, they spent so much time setting up the fact that this guy, this Irish guy, who, and I can't remember his name, is like Dooley. That Dooley finds people like Boss Tweed that are worthy of being killed. It's almost like Dexter in a sense that, Harry's code is that Dooley's code is if you're going to kill somebody and drink their blood, make it somebody worth dying. That's worth being killed.
Right.
So again, that story to me was fascinating. and then these other creatures kind of feel like it's a little bit like the Jekyll series from the guy that created Sherlock.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of his name.
Yeah, when they suddenly did a literary ending where he turns out to be the actual Jekyll and Hyde, they talk about the book in it. It suddenly threw me out of the story, and that's what it did here. So,
what do you have, Jay?
I thought it was really good. It's so hard nowadays to do, vampires and zombies and werewolves. They kind of get done to death. This one handled it very well, and I'm kind of with Dan. At the end of that book, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't get, we don't need a universal multiverse thing happening. But then again, I want to see what they do with that in the second issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no solicitation yet for the second issue, so I can't even peek ahead. What are you going to do? All right, our last book, and I think you're right. This is probably my favorite book of the week, but this is another book that, for me, made me feel my feelings. Alice Ever After, #1 from Boom Studios by Dan Panosian.
In Giorgio Spalletta, he did the art as well.
Yeah, I was trying to look up a pronunciation for Giorgio.
Yeah. I'm going to jump on this one because this is a good book, but I don't think it's for me. Alice is a character that I've played in the Wonderland universe for Zenoscope. I've read and followed a lot of Alice stories. This is a very dark, heartbreaking take on post-Wonderland. And where I think it's an interesting take, I don't necessarily think it's a ride I want to be on. So, gorgeous artwork, both Spalletta's and Panosian's, because they split it, whether they're in Wonderland or in the real world. Down the line, I think it's a great concept, and I think this is really going to click for a lot of people, but just not me. But good.
So before I let Jay do his, I do want to mention, because when I start talking about this, it's going to be a minute. This book came with a printing error. Boom Studios, some of the variant covers came with wrong barcodes, which means they had wrong codes at Diamond. So just be cool with your LCS. Boom is working on trying to come up with a correction so everybody gets the cover they want. There is a gorgeous J. Scott Campbell cover. There's also a pretty cool Adam Hughes cover and a Jenny Frison cover for this book that's really great. But your store may not have gotten what they expected to get. So just kind of, roll with it and see where you wind up. Just that's a piece of business to take care of. Go ahead, Jay.
So this art style feels like I've seen it a lot in recent books. Not that it's a bad thing by any means. Story-wise, it's very depressing. It feels like there's no Wonderland. There's no such thing as Wonderland. It's just her riding the high into a place she believes.
Spoilers.
Oh, my bad. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry.
We're just messing with you.
Okay, don't do that. Oh, I'm already sweating bullets most of the time when I'm on these shows. But there was one thing that actually made me laugh, if you can believe that. Made me laugh. She's feeding her cats sardines or something.
Yeah.
And the cat knocks over the jar that it's in. And somebody, I think it's her sister, somebody says, well, that's a good way to get the goodies are easier. And it's supposed to be a light bulb moment, but instead of a light bulb, they drew a candlestick. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a dark story, but I'd definitely read more of it just to see where they go.
So there's two factors here, and Jay, I think you kind of hit on one, is this idea that maybe Wonderland doesn't exist, and I don't think that's true. I think Wonderland very much exists, but Alice as an adult has an inability to get there, but still desires to be there. So she is using whatever means necessary to relive that feeling, which is, as someone who's dealt with addiction in his life, it's true. Like, that's a thing. That's where my problems with addiction started, was chasing a feeling that I had that I could no longer replicate. And so you do things that you wouldn't normally do that are outside of your character to try to get back to that place. Like, I in reading this book, the song "I Want to Go Back There Someday" from the Muppets played over and over and over again in my head. And this book was painful for me because it's triggering in a lot of ways to stuff that maybe not in a direct way I've felt and dealt with in my own life. You have a person who, because of their actions, is maybe a little bit on the outs with their family, a person who feels sort of alone, a person who feels like their only friend is someone who isn't necessarily approved of in society, right? Like there's a number of things that Alice is feeling and going through that are totally relatable. And then you kind of come to these break points, right? In life where it's rock bottoms or stepping stones towards rock bottom, and you feel like she's getting there. So this book made me feel a lot of things, and it was tough, but it was a incredible look kind of at a way to tell a story, an addiction story, that's going to be very relatable to a lot of people without just straight up telling that story like has been done a few times now. So
I think you may have hit on exactly why you and I differ on this book, because you come from addiction from a personal place. I come at it from the point of view of somebody who's had to deal with an addict a couple different times in my family from the outside. So watching somebody go through that again is not something that's enjoyable. Is not something that, it's all the negative stuff that you don't want to deal with. And, comics to me has always been escapism. So from my point of view, it's hard to read this.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Like I said, sometimes, comics, I don't always enjoy the books I like. Sometimes I read it because it makes me feel a certain thing. And that's what this did. Like, there's a book out there. I'm not going to name it because other stuff, but that really kind of hit this nail on the head in a vampire story way. And it made me, feel a certain way. And I really enjoyed the book. And most people are going, Kyle, I can't read it. It makes me cry. I get that. But you hand this book to somebody like me or somebody who's been through, the process. And, I've been sober. It'll be 8 years this coming November. So it's one of those things when you have distance from it a little bit, you can enjoy the therapy that something like this would give you.
Yeah. So. I think we all agree it's a really well done book. Absolutely. But it's going to hit you different ways depending what your life experience is. So,
absolutely. So,
did we tell the audience we were going long?
We didn't tell the audience we were going long, but we did. Let's
before we jump out, let's each, something we should do each week, pick our favorite book of the week, our pick of the week. Now, you just said yours is Alice Ever After. For me, it's The Rocketeer. That's the one that just clicked for me. Okay.
It's got to be Nottingham. It's got to be.
All right. So those are our 3 recommendations. If you're only picking up 3 books this week, those are the ones we would put our money on.
Absolutely. And if you need someplace to pick up comics this week, head over to comicsshoplocator.com. And
gonna make it a thing.
.com, and that voice is trademark of Jeff Dunham. Oh, this is in no way endorsed by the experience, and if someone wants Dan to pay, they have to bill him. Head over to comicsshoplocator.com, type in the zip code of where you are, and it will show you comic shops near to you. And as Dan said earlier, they still have comics in your local comic shop, so maybe go there and buy them. We will see everybody next week here on In Stores This Week. Later on.